All right, so Joan, thank you for joining us today from the West Coast. So you are actually our first panelist in the Future Music Attorneys program to come to us via a live interview from the other coast. So welcome to Future Music Attorneys, and we appreciate you for offering your wisdom, your insight, your advice, and sharing your story. So just definitely introduce yourself to the students, and we're going to certainly go down, kind of what your story is, where you worked, where you wanted to work, where you are working, your struggles and your challenges. Introduce yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. It's an honor to speak to this group. Yeah, I've been here at Red Bull for almost a year, working as a music counsel is what my role is called. I'm the first one in the role, and I kind of came here in a roundabout way. I always knew I wanted to do something in music, like, from high school and college. I always had internships and different jobs. I worked at the high school radio station, all that kind of stuff. And I worked for a couple years after undergrad and decided I wanted to kind of come into the business at a higher level, kind of skip the part of answering someone's phones and that sort of thing. So I thought law school, would be a great way to kind of get into the music business in a different way. And I had internships in like publicity and radio promo and things like that at labels and at radio promo companies back in like the late 90s when that was a big thing. And so then I went to law school, and I had a series of internships, all of which were music business related. I interned for a music law firm in New York called Felcher and Freifeld, and we had Rihanna when she was very young, when she was a minor. I remember dealing with her minor paperwork, coming from Barbados. Yeah, and signed her to Def Jam back in the day, or was Island Def Jam at that time. And then I worked for them during my second and third year of law school. They didn't have an associate, so I was kind of the person who would take my laptop and spend a lot of time working with them. I got paid even like, $10, $12 an hour, something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, and then I wanted to be in-house at a label. So I spent I spent the summer before my third year at Island in the UK. And I worked in business affairs there, which is kind of different. The lawyers over there deal with a lot of stuff that business affairs, record label lawyers here don't deal with, engaging producers, engaging mixers, certain things that are handled by artists in the United States, the label handles out there. So that's kind of interesting to see.
It is very interesting. I've had my dealings with it. It has been a little frustrating, to say the least.
Right. Right. And it's interesting. Now I'm back here and I'm doing this a bit again. We kind of sit in the place where we're kind of like doing these label things, but we're not getting the same rights. But the artists that we work with at Red Bull, and I can get to that later, they're more developing. They might not have a lawyer, they might not have a manager that can do these producer deals. So I end up kind of in that role again. So it's interesting to feel like kind of.
That is very interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. And then I did an LLM at Cardozo also in New York, and I wanted to be in-house at a American label, business affairs. So I was at Atlantic for that fourth year, if you will, law school. And then which was great. And I spent like a lot of 4 days a week, I would say. I was nearly there. I was able to apply like my JD copyright and intellectual property credits towards the LLM, so I didn't have to spend as much time in the classroom. Okay. And I had that experience at Atlantic, and that was great. And then when I finished there, a position opened at a firm that I had reached out to and had done a bit of paralegal work for before law school, called with artists like Roberta Flack and, the Talking Heads, Pavarotti's estate, really a lot of really established producers and mixers, Dave Sardi, Nick Launay, in the pop and rock sort of area. And when I worked there for a couple of years, I spent a few months at the firm Sterling Rooks and Ferrara as well, and went back to Beldoc. And then I spent about almost 4 years at Island Def Jam Republic in New York, which is where Evita and I met, working on projects like Big Crit. And And then I moved out to LA about a year ago, and so I've been here at Red Bull kind of putting it all together, which has been really cool.
Wow. So, you know, you kind of have the story that a lot of law school students who are interested in the music law profession, kind of the route that they wish that they could go or ideally would like to go, you know, being in law school, having the internships that are related to the music space somehow, actually coming out, you know, getting the firm experience, the record label experience. So you've kind of got, I think, what a lot of students would consider ideal. And I don't know if you would attribute that to kind of your location, maybe your location in the market at that time, the music space at that time. What do you attribute to your ability to be able to kind of have various experiences within the music space from the legal side?
Yeah, well, thank you. That's really cool to hear, and it has been really cool to kind of see all these different areas. Yeah, I think I've always been really focused on relationships. And when you meet people and you work with them, you try to treat everyone with respect. And really, you know, it's a really small business. And I try to keep in touch with people. I try to, you know, not in just when I need to talk to them about a deal, but I do make some effort. We're all so busy. It's really hard. But I try to, you know, have lunch or drink with someone when I can. And try to kind of explore where I felt like I would fit in the best. I think being in private practice was great training for learning all the skills and kind of touching all sorts of areas. Okay. And I think that I also felt like maybe it's not my personality to be the same sort of like hustler or entrepreneur, you know, all those extra skills that you have to have in private practice that I know you are well familiar with. I think I appreciate the comfort of the corporate environment, which comes with certain, you know, restrictions or limitations, but also, you know, I don't have to worry about billing a client. I only have one client, you know. I don't have to keep track of my hours. I don't have to chase people for money, for personal, you know, money, chasing people for money for other things. But so things like that, I decided maybe my personality or what I liked and appreciated, I might find in this place or that place. And then I think moving from a label environment to Red Bull has been, again, just kind of keeping my eyes open, trying to maintain relations, trying to talk to people and learn about what they do and try to keep broadening myself as much as I can. Coming here, it's been really great to be, I'm the only one in my role, so I kind of get to create a lot of
that is unbelievable. Considering, you know, yeah. I know that Red Bull certainly has its hands in a lot of music initiatives and really, you know, really taking charge and leadership with tapping into kind of the talent that may not necessarily be mainstream, but they have an identifiable audience and creating initiatives. Yeah. So for you to kind of be the only person, you know, in that role, I say kudos to you, and also like, oh my goodness, you, because I can imagine that within that role, there's a lot of education that comes with getting things done from the music side. So I think that's extremely awesome. I do want to backtrack to your experience in private practice, and for, you know, for students who may be watching, you know, what that means is really going into a firm. And I always tell students, you know, think broadly about the ways that music exists. Especially now, it could be in a firm, it could be, you know, at a record label or publisher, it could be at a beverage brand, it could be at a technology company. So let's talk a little bit about the firm environment, because I think that's what a lot of students immediately think of when it comes to getting some sort of opportunity in the music law space, is going within a firm. Describe to me kind of the culture, the environment of being in a music law practice.
Well, I think I had kind of two experiences, because the Belduck, Levine and Hoffman firm, actually a few. The first firm I was at, the one that I mentioned, had clients like Rihanna, and we had Bruno Mars. I think they still have Bruno Mars. A lot of producers and artists at Island Def Jam, or more at Def Jam, I guess, at the time. Just two guys. They didn't have an associate, so the intern was kind of doing a lot of that sort of work. And it's a lot of so I spent a good bit of time there, but as a student. And then I spent the first couple years employed in my career at a firm, Belduck, Levine and Hoffman, that had a music practice within a bigger practice, including civil rights, matrimonial, etc. So being at just a music firm, which was the experience during law school, and then again at Sterling Works and Ferrara, there's kind of that clubhouse sort of vibe. It's like some guys, a lot of guys, casual, laid back, dress, laid back atmosphere, similar to a record label. And a lot of the work that you're doing starting out is going to be producer agreements, which are kind of mini reporting agreements in a lot of ways. They let you cut your teeth on a lot of the same issues, but in a more discreet sort of setting. And there's a lot of them coming through and happening. So I found that was kind of the first thing that I would get thrown to work on. And I think that's probably still the case in firms with a new attorney. And I really enjoyed that. I got to work with some good people who were really good at teaching and kind of walking me through what everything meant so that I really understood what I was doing and I wasn't just making the same comments to each document and not really knowing why. So it's important, So it's important to have some, a partner or somebody that has some time to spend when you're a new student, and maybe that can be in law school as an intern when there's not as much at stake. But it's important to have somebody that will take the time to walk you through this weird language and these sort of weird phrases.
Yeah, absolutely. You said earlier that you didn't think that, it wasn't really your personality to kind of hustle within a private practice environment. Describe further kind of what you mean by the hustle.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the music firms I was in, not the firm where not Beldock, the firm with the other practices, but the two firms that I spent time in that were just music firms, the lawyers kind of act almost as managers in a way. They are getting the clients, maybe their clients don't have managers, maybe they do, but it's a lot more kind of day-to-day management kind of, and you know this well, I'm sure, getting out there, going out, scoping, scouting for the talent, actually pitching them for the record deals, pitching their producer deals, really kind of actively trying to shape and direct the careers of the artists. And then also, the client-based, any sort of client-based work where you're keeping track of, 6-minute increments of your time, 0.1 hours or maybe 0.25 hours, keeping track of all of that and sending out your bill and kind of accounting for everything you're doing. And a lot of times the artists you're working with might not have money to pay, and so it feels like a big risk. A lot of times they might have money to pay, but you have to chase them, chase them down. So a lot of those sort of things, I felt like I felt like, and I was in a couple of like male-dominated sort of offices where, it's going out and the agent thing, the music manager thing, it can be kind of a guy's thing. It's out late at night in the clubs, out. And I love going out. I love going to see music. Like, this was why I got into this in the first place. But I thought maybe this wasn't I didn't want to have to depend on that for my bread and butter, to be out finding the clients and then to be out hanging out, to be pitching them for record deals, to be pitching them for publishing. I enjoy that, and I still make a point out of maintaining and networking, but I felt like I didn't want to have to depend on that in that way. Maybe. I didn't. Yeah, and I also didn't love the billing and that whole extra element of my day. I would go days, I'd get so busy and things would happen, and then I'd be like, oh my God, I didn't write my time down for like 2 days.
It's easy to do that. I think the whole timekeeping and the increments, I think it's the most non-natural thing ever. And I think it requires you to be extremely organized, which I don't know that most lawyers are. Organized people. So I think I've never had anyone really give me their take on, being within a firm and kind of being a woman and going out and kind of being a manager, entrepreneur, that kind of grind that takes place outside of the office. So it's very cool to kind of hear that perspective. And I actually share that same sentiment. So I had to figure out how am I going to build my practice and not necessarily be out, 5 days out of 70 nights a week. It's just not what I wanted to sign up for. So that for me was certainly something that I had to figure out as well. Very, very cool insight. So from the private practice, and then again, how did you roll over into the universal system?
Well, that was, again, a relationship I'd had for a long time. When I moved to New York in the early 2000s, before a lot of social media and a lot of things that we take for granted today, I was asking my friends, like, do you know anyone that works in music law? And a friend of mine we were both kind of just out of college, and she was an assistant to a person who was an agent or manager out here, an artist, acting agent. A manager, and she said, oh, I think my boss's brother does that in New York and whatever, and he turned out to be one of the head people there in the business affairs department. So we connected, and I ended up he kind of became a mentor to me. After all these years, we always kept in touch. I would email him. He was very important and busy. He wasn't emailing me to be like, hey, how are you doing? You know? But he always was amenable. Like when I reached out to him, he'd say, oh, come by like the office and say hi and whatever. And I kind of thought, I don't really know if I have anything interesting to talk about, but he's nice. He seems to want to keep in touch. And I learned as we got to know each other over many, just a really good person for always paying it forward. You know, whenever a college student from his alma mater would reach out, he would have them come by the office. And if you didn't impress him and he didn't think you were like a genuine, decent person, he wouldn't, have you back again. But he was always willing to kind of entertain. So I was lucky to connect with someone that was that sort of person, and I kind of worked at maintaining that. And I kind of always kept him updated on like, oh, I got into law school, I'm going here. And I remember when I passed the bar exam, just any opportunity I had for meaningful catch up. And I remember he took me out to dinner with some other people to meet, when I passed the bar exam in New York. Yeah. And so we just always I was always leading the charge, obviously, because, when you have a nice connection who's in a sort of high level position, they're not going to be proactively chasing you down. But if you have a good connection, they will be responsive, and you can't feel bad about reaching out. I think that's appreciated. It's a like-minded sort of thing. And if you're respectful and appreciative and smart and you're showing your own initiative, that works. And so he had kind of always helped to connect me with things like, oh, hey, do you know these people or whatever? And it ended up amounting to a couple of internships. The one at Island in the UK during law school he kind of facilitated that introduction. But of course, I always had to go in and do a good job. I couldn't obviously be an idiot, but then when the time came, we always just kept in touch. And then the time came 8 or 9 years into our relationship, and he needed a junior business affairs person at Island Def Jam, and he reached out. And it's great because, as I learned being inside the label, these jobs might be posted on the website after they're already filled, and they're only being posted for HR purposes, they're not really real postings, or so I learned that it's being then on the inside, it's really important to have someone looking out like that for you, because chances are, as an outside person just blindly cold calling or applying for something on a website, there's going to be a lot of other people who have nurtured connections and spent a lot of time putting the effort in, and and I feel really lucky that someone that reached out to me. So that was how I ended up leaving the firm and going there, and I was really glad, and it was great.
Awesome.
And it was great, and we're still in very close touch, and we were trying to hang out when he was out for the Grammys last week. A lot of people ended up catching a flu or something going around, and I was in New York last week, and so I don't know, it didn't work out, but we keep
probably best. And so what I love, basically what I've heard you say is that over, several years, you planted seeds that ultimately, got fruit from it. And I always tell students that everything that you do from this day forward, it's planting a seed for something. So make sure that you plant good seeds. But then I also think that students, or just people in general, we get frustrated because our efforts aren't resulting in anything. And I always say, if there's something that you want to pursue, plant the seeds, have integrity, be sincere about it, and you will get fruit. And oftentimes it will show itself in a way that you didn't even expect, but you've been working towards, whatever that was, over a period of time, building relationships with people, being sincere about it. Even for me, the last several interns that I've had, I've actually gotten them from my Future Music Attorneys program, and I've pursued them because I've watched them over the years to see the investment that they've been willing to make on their own. And that really says a lot about who you are and what you'll do once you get into my office, because once you're in my office, I absolutely have to rely and trust that you're of character and that you're willing to do the work and that you're not going to, poop out on me when I give you, your 15th producer agreement, that type of thing. So I think that's a very cool story. So once you got in the universal system and you were, part of being inside of a record label, I think a lot of students imagine, what's the culture inside of a record label? What are the conversations? To what extent are you involved in the creative process as well?
It's really cool. I mean, it's crazy. And like some of the things that would go on, the practical jokes and the stupid, crazy things that I can never share for risk of embarrassing really important people that you might encounter. Like it's a free for all in a lot of ways and really fun and just really anything goes. And really everyone works really hard. It might be a New York thing, but it's very much like, you're on all the time. The way the deals kind of happen is that, an A&R person might get, and have an interest in an artist. They kind of have put their feelers out. They start talking to management, and then they say, they kind of would reach out to one of us. A lot of times you'd have a relationship with like particular people and they might always reach out to you. The heads of the department would kind of oversee to make sure everyone's workflow is going so that like there's not someone with 20 deals, in the works and somebody else who has none. But you'd kind of connect with the A&R person one way or another, get a sense of what the deal looks like, send out like an email proposal or something sort of informal, like, oh, hey, like, I know you guys have been talking about a potential record label or demo deal or whatever with so-and-so, like, here's what we'd like to propose, like an album plus 3 options or whatever. Here's what the initial fund would be. We're thinking about these royalty terms. We'd like to have like these other sort of rights as well. What do you think? And then you might go back and forth on the proposals. You probably would talk to the other lawyer or manager on the phone, kind of kicking things off as well before you actually send the proposal in writing. You would refine it closely with the A&R. They might look at it before it goes out. And then you kind of would be closely working with the A&R person as responses come back to drafting the agreement, to kind of, if any major deal points come up, like, oh, they actually want twice as much money, or they only want to give us 1 album, or they don't want us to have any control over creative. They want to like they want to do all their own artwork, whatever. Things like that come up that are really like business decisions or creative decisions. You loop your A&R person in. Otherwise, you kind of are expected to take the deal and run with it as much as you can. If there's any weird legal things that you're being asked to agree, like, something involving like royalty uplifts or something like that, escalations, at certain sales thresholds, a lot of things which are less relevant nowadays, but things which have been heavily negotiated. Things like that, you might talk to the more senior attorneys and get everyone's opinion. Like, what do you think about using like, this many streams to calculate the royalty up, whatever, that sort of thing. So you kind of figure out who to pose those questions to and discuss, and then ultimately you get to an agreement. And then after that happens, you kind of end up with a roster of artists that you look after, and a lot of them you'll inherit. Obviously, you don't have a roster of artists, right. All of whom you've done the deals for, But yeah, so you have the ones that you've done deals for and ones that you've been passed on when the head of the department, we shuffle around, amongst all the lawyers, all the artists, and then you kind of are the point person. So whenever when a marketing person comes up with this crazy idea, like Iggy Azalea is going to do this like fashion line with this company, whatever, and they want to use one of her songs, and they want her to they're going to make this video, we're going to put these products in the video, she's going to wear this. So you kind of, the marketing person or the product manager might come to you with this sort of proposal. Then you kind of get to know the players. You get to know the artist manager, the artist lawyer, the product team at the label, the marketing people. You talk to the A&R maybe, who's kind of in charge of the creative direction of the artist. They're kind of guardian of the artist creatively. and kind of just then, talk to your lawyer colleagues and get a sense of what deal terms might work. Have we done this before? Like, how can we make this work? Or, maybe it doesn't work. And kind of, loop in people as needed to take those things across the finish. Other things, we at the label, you wouldn't deal too much with the producers or mixers. You kind of, I could use hip hop Big Crit as a great example, because there's a lot of issues that come up in one of those releases, rather than like a rock band release where there's one producer producing the whole track, there's no featured artist, etc. If you have an album project coming up and it's a hip hop album, like a Big Crit that you and I worked on closely in 2014, most recently. You might sit down with your A&R admin team, your clearances team. You're always talking to the A&R, the creative person, hopefully on the project as well. Looking at the track list as it develops, keeping an eye on what samples there are in each track. Do we have the music? Is this approved? Who wrote this? Who, has somebody paid this producer? Do we have the producer decks? Do we have this paperwork? Then you have a great team of people, usually the label in place, like A&R administration, other people in business affairs who handle the clearances, the label copy. I'm kind of helping you put these pieces together, and you might sit down regularly to kind of go through issues and stuff as things get teed up for release. So, so those are the
I think it's a great picture. So on a scale, before we jump into Red Bull, on a scale of 1 to 10, as far as your role within the label, how much of the substantive stuff did you know beforehand, and how much of that did you learn kind of on the job? What was your grasp of kind of all the label workings and deals?
That's a great question. I think I knew beforehand, I had seen some, I don't know if I'd ever negotiated like a full-length 100 and some page reporting agreement before, but I definitely looked at more publishing-related stuff in private practice, and that's kind of stuff I got to leave to the side once I came to the label, for better or worse. But I kind of, through doing a lot of producer agreements and kind of seeing a lot of little marketing things that would come up, at Sterling Rooks and Ferrara, I worked with like clients like Leaky Lee and like DFA, like James Murphy, those kind of artists, who would do these weird sort of marketing branding projects with agencies like Cornerstone or like, Green Label Sound or things like that. So I was used to seeing kind of weird like beverage things, weird branding sort of things, producer agreements, which have a lot of the issues that come up in recording agreements. I had dealt a lot with, at Beldock, Levine and Hoffman, which was the firm I was at for the longest time, we represented Rihanna's furnishing company. Just total coincidence that I crossed paths with Rihanna in so many different ways. So we had her furnishing company, Strictly Rhythm Productions, or syndicated, I don't know, SRP it was. Anyway, so we kind of would be the ones responsible for all the producer agreements. So for a couple of years, like every November, she put out an album, and I kind of was the, making sure all of the producer stuff was in place. I was engaging all these producers from her furnishing company. And then I would deal with the label and our admin very closely, and they would say, oh, we have a producer song deal in place for like Stargate or whatever, so this song will hit the deal. And so I kind of got a sense of what that meant and how that worked and what the A&R admin person did. So, and then I feel like coming to the label, it's a crazy place. There's a lot going on. You're learning all these, coming at things from a different way, but you'll have bits and pieces, and it snaps together. And so there was a lot I knew, but a lot I didn't know. And again, being in like a supportive environment with like good teachers, no matter how busy, and just working really earnestly and really, really trying. I always would try to figure things out as much as I could before coming in with a question. Again, trying to not hold on to a question until it became late, until you look stupid at, asking it 5 days after you got an assignment, but really trying to figure things out always as much as I could before coming in with a question. And I think that's always served me well. There's always been a lot of stuff I don't know.
I love it. I love that you said that. That's one thing, when I speak with students, I always try to be as transparent as possible. I have no desire to sit in front of students and say, hey, I had it all figured out, and here I am. I mean, a lot of what I learned. I mean, probably everything. It was on the job training. I believe that you have to immerse yourself in the culture of, whatever it is that your legal capacity is. And for us, it's music, and then, it's firm, and then, record label, and then it's a brand. But immerse yourself in the culture, continue to be a student of what you're actually working on, challenging yourself, not just to be get lost in the mechanics of it all, because sometimes it can become very mechanical. And then, seeking someone, who is a mentor for me, that was reading books and as much as I could find on Google till you eventually get to the point where you do have mentors. So I love that you said, hey, I'm here and I'm here to figure it out. And I like the big picture that you painted about the label. I think it shows it kind of a stark difference between label and private practice. So now Red Bull. Again, like I said, I think Red Bull is doing an amazing job with getting itself involved in the music space, not just on a commercial level, but really with the talent that may not be commercial, but have a really good fan base, something that's, authentic, it has, roots to it. And you said that you're like the person in that role that's handling all of these things. So when it comes to kind of having that private practice experience, that label experience, and all the music knowledge, and you go to basically a beverage company, how do you educate? How do you kind of take lead with conversations and saying, I understand this is the Red Bull objective, but these are the rights that are involved. How do you function on a day-to-day?
Well, it's a lot of like re-educating and reminding people, and a lot of kind of trying to come up with, when you are, and this is, I'm sure, something you've learned in your situation as a sole practitioner as well, you try to come up with scalable solutions with maybe forms or agreements or ways of dealing with things that don't need to be negotiated every single time. And when you are kind of on your own, and I report to the head of legal, and he comes from a television background. Actually, he's from BET, so it's like music and television a bit, Viacom. But so he's aware and has a good sensitivity, but he was on his own kind of for a couple of years, and then he's brought in like a couple of other TV specialists, myself, a data security sort of privacy specialist. So I do have someone to bounce things off of he is generally aware and like a really smart guy. And then I have another woman who is a kind of clearance expert coming from a TV production background. And she was with Bunim Murray, which does a lot of like reality stuff with a lot of music, like Real World, Road Rules, that kind of stuff. So she has a good familiarity with some of that stuff too. So I'm lucky there. But then I'm kind of tasked with coming up with solutions to, for example, we have this developing artist program, Red Bull Sound Select. We have a lot of artists that we sign into the program. They may be signed to record labels, to deals. We work with their deals to kind of carve out some exclusivity so that we can make a couple of cool tracks. And it's kind of extra marketing arms and legs for these developing artists. We let them own the tracks. We set up cool events for them, because that's what we do. We do great events. We get them in the studios with great top shelf producers. We get major features on their tracks. So we create these stories, like developing artists featuring big deal, Def Jam artist or whatever. So it's a really exciting story for the artist and for everyone involved. And such a great opportunity. And we aren't, the interesting thing is, the point I'm getting at is that we aren't trying to sell these or make any sort of profit off of them. We are trying to, we have this benefit of this beverage company. It's really great. And we have an opportunity to give wings to people and ideas. And I'm giving wings to like these artists who want to develop their music career. And we can kind of make interesting decisions and not be stressed out about, we are trying to function in the music space as a credible music player. And I think bringing in myself, and we have other people not in the legal department that come from solid, just straight music background, so that we have credibility when having these conversations with labels and artists. But also we have the flexibility to do interesting things, and we do have the pressure of maintaining some sort of precedent, we try to maintain consistency, and I try to come up with scalable solutions so that we can do a lot of these recordings, so we can keep bringing artists into the program and doing cool things for them. But we don't have, the sort of corporate umbrella of like a record label that has like all these other record labels, and you have to everyone has to take the same approach. And we kind of can figure things out and kind of come up with solutions that make sense, that, you know, serve the artist well. Like, we are trying to really, like, you know, give them a little extra arms and legs and give them a boost in their career. Some cool stories to tell and some cool tracks to do something with. And you know, kind of do some fun things and not have the pressure of, you know, and we can kind of, if something doesn't work, we can tweak it, we can fix it. You know, I'm working with a lot of what I do with these tracks is I'm engaging the producers, the mixers, I'm talking to the people in the studios, I'm doing a bit of A&R admin. It's great that I know all these functions and I know all these people that I'm missing on my team as well. The person to handle the featured artist clearances, you know, that's me. So all of these sort of things. But I kind of, coming from the label and seeing all the different things that go into the recording process, I can kind of come up with solutions that work in kind of a distilled sort of way to deal with this little developing artist program that we have. It's just 2 tracks per artist. We're not trying to own them. We are trying to do cool things with them online, market them, get them some shows and stuff like that. So, and there's other events. We do our Music Academy in New York every May. We have the festival, and then we have the Academy around the world. We had a lot of major, you know, this kind of the opposite of developing artists. We have, like, Bjork, I think, was very involved in Paris. Nile Rodgers, Questlove, Flying Lotus came through the Academy. Yeah, so very, like, established artists. I think, you know, Pharrell has had a strong relationship with us. Pusha T, we had some relations with. So a lot of artists that are, like, you know, well established, are kind of A&R creative people, have made good relationships with them. I kind of come in and try to make the deals in a reasonable way and speak to people that maybe I know or I've dealt with before in terms that they understand. Then we can do some cool, like, lectures. We try to come up with ways of, you know, using content without offending the labels or the artist publishers or their representatives. You know, we try to create meaningful content that will help, you know, up-and-coming producers and artists. You know, our Music Academy is an excellent learning resource, but I'm constantly kind of trying to be on the side of the rights holders and labels, the artists, you know, and to remind people, like, we can't just put out this track featuring this, you know, Atlantic Records artist and put it, we can't take it to radio, maybe. We can't, like, put it on the, you know, we can't maybe sell it here or there. We can't, you know, you can't do this or that. These things mean a lot to the labels, and what they trade in is their recording rights. So, you know, and everyone gets that, but we're a big company with many arms and legs, and a lot of things happen that, you know, don't come across my radar as well. So you're constantly just kind of doing your best, trying to, you know, get people on the same page and use your good relationships when things don't go the way you maybe set them up to go.
That is very cool. I've actually had 2 clients that did do the Red Bull. Was it Red Bull Select? Is that what it is? Sound Select.
Yeah.
And it's a really great opportunity, exactly like what you said. You take a developing artist and pair them either with an artist that's got a little bit more movement or a producer. I love what you said. I think it's the cutest thing. You guys are giving developing artists wings. I can't. What's that? For that. Oh no,
I can't take credit.
I think it's amazing. I think it's super cute, and every developing artist, you know, certainly needs wings. So I think that what you're doing and what Red Bull is doing is really amazing. And I was working on a deal with Red Bull, and you kind of came in on the tail end of that. I was very happy to see you there for all the reasons that you mentioned. Just knowing the rights that are involved, the process of making music, understanding kind of what the label's position is going to be, what the publisher's positions going to be. So you have given us a very thorough view of private practice, record label, brand. So I want to ask you one more question. And that question is, you know, why music? Out of all the things that you could have chosen to do, it seemed like you had this very early path of pursuing music in some fashion. Why music for you?
Well, I think I was always interested in music from, like, you know, I took piano lessons when I was little. And then my parents were not into music, but they did get me into the lessons and stuff. But we never had music at home. I was only child. And I kind of had to, like, really explore and discover things on my own. And I got really into, like, you know, learning about classic rock and, like, you know, like, I was really into New Order and, like, all that kind of Depeche Mode and all that kind of stuff, really into Led Zeppelin and that kind of stuff, Beastie Boys, like, the whole gamut of, like, 80s and 90s things, and for a little kid. And it meant a lot to me, and I was like, I had to really like take it on and figure it out myself. And in high school, I had a radio show. We had a really cool radio station at my high school, and I always wanted to do something in the space. And then it was the thing I was really most excited about and interested in. And I also felt like my personality, I liked the sort of laid back demeanor. I like the casual dress. I like the other, things that come with being in music. I felt like suited my personality, like the sense of humor, just kind of being able to have a bit of personality, that it's okay, to have some personality and to have some opinion. And I like the idea of working with something that meant something to me. I'm not, and I think people always say this when they're trying to work in music. I feel weird. I don't know what's right. Sorry, I'm making everyone dizzy. So I think a lot of people probably say the same sort of stuff. Like, it just meant something to me, and I could not have gone to law school. I didn't want to do like tax law or something. I wasn't like, I'm interested in the law, generally just law. Yeah, no.
I was not that student either. I was not there to learn the law and be a legal scholar. That just wasn't it.
Yeah. No, and I think that that if you might not feel very supported in your school. Like, I think you and I have talked about, you go into the career office and you're like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do music. They're just like, well, good luck. Maybe you want to get an internship in like real estate, because that's also transactional.
No, it's not.
And I was like, no, I don't. No, it's not. So I think you'll encounter a lot of that, and you learn that you just have to like, keep at it, have your own relationships, and like, if you're really interested and stick with it, you will find a way. There's so many. I feel like the record labels are smaller, whatever. There's less money in the business, but more people are listening to music than ever. More people have more ways of hearing it, and there's more out there, and thus there's more opportunity to get involved, I think. And I think if you you're not going to get help at your law school, probably. You're probably not going to go into the career office and have them connect you with someone. And that's okay. And you're not probably going to learn, even if you're lucky to have like music business or entertainment law class at school, that's great. And I took all those classes, and I went to Cardozo, which is known to have like an entertainment and intellectual property program. But I didn't learn anything I do is all stuff I learned on my internships and my work. I don't refer back to like, even stuff that gets technical and statutory, like about publishing or, royalties, things like that. Like, you learn that on the job too when you come into a situation. So, and contracts class, not really, not really applicable. So I think it's great to get a basic grasp of what the rights are, but you're not even going to, in a copyright class, you're not going to really understand how a recording is distinguished from a composition and whose interests are different and how it works. It's all stuff that you have to learn by doing, and you just jump in and do it, and nobody knows it until they've done it. They are not learning it. Nobody's learning it in law school unless, I don't know, maybe it's very different 10 years later, but
it wasn't my experience either. And I think you are a true testament that, hey, you go to school, you take the classes, but you will learn as you go, and and you'll be fine. I think the biggest challenge is not so much the material, but just kind of making sure that the material fits within the context of the space and the trends and how things are transitioning. And I think that's exciting stuff as well. What's happening in the music space and how it may be compromising or challenging the music rights. So students, if you're listening as you watch the replay, I think Joan is giving you phenomenal insight in various environments. So Joan, we appreciate you so much. Thank you for your time. We know it's the middle of your day. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. See you soon, Joan.
Bye. Talk to you soon. Bye.